Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at inspireddisorder.com/plus.
This is The Ray Taylor Show.
This is my top 5 movies released on Thanksgiving weekend. Thanksgiving weekend is a very popular time of year for movie theaters and studios to release movies because there's a lot of families that go to watch them. They need activities. Families in town, they need activities that may not involve them interacting with each other. You get enough of the family interaction around the dinner table during Thanksgiving. And Thanksgiving movie theater releases, a lot of great family movies come out, and just a lot of great movies. And it's also the beginning of the awards season towards the end of the year. Studios like to release their big awards movies so that they're fresh in the minds of the Academy members when they go vote. So you tend to get higher quality films in general. But Thanksgiving weekend, a lot of family movies, a lot of like family-friendly movies, kids movies, animated films. Huge weekend for Disney. Disney loves to put out movies on Thanksgiving weekend. And I wanted to rank my top 5 movies that were released on Thanksgiving weekend. And the list I went off of movies to choose from was from Box Office Mojo, of the top movies released on Thanksgiving weekend, which gave me a bunch of movies. And then from that, I chose all the movies that I liked. And then from that, I rewatched a bunch of movies, which is fun. A lot of great movies I really enjoyed, was able to get access to Disney Plus, which a lot of these movies are available on Disney Plus, as many of them are animated. So that is why I am doing this list. Obviously, Thanksgiving just recently happened. As this comes out on Sunday, it is literally the Thanksgiving weekend that movies of this ilk will be released. None of the movies released this year, obviously, will be included, despite the fact that there might be a new edition if I were to redo this again next year. But with all that said, let's get into it with my top 5 movies released on Thanksgiving weekend. Starting off with number 5 is the only movie on this list that I was not able to rewatch. However, this movie was on high rotation in my 20s. One of my favorite movies, regardless of the time of year, but it does happen to be a Christmas movie. And that movie coming in at number 5 is the one and only Bad Santa. Raunchy comedy, probably my favorite Billy Bob Thornton movie, probably the best, like the perfect character for Billy Bob Thornton to be. You have amazing performances from the late actors of John Ritter. I believe it was his last film, and one of the last films that Bernie Mac was in. Just a great movie that when it came out in the year 2003, I was living in San Diego. Parties, movies that got released, comedies that got released were always on heavy rotation. And during the holidays, the movies that were on heavy rotation were Elf, which is not a movie that came out Thanksgiving weekend, and Bad Santa, both on heavy rotation, among others like Anchorman and other movies. But yeah, Bad Santa, a great movie. It's like raunchy comedy with heart, right? You have this horrible person in Billy Bob Thornton's character playing a mall Santa who works with another guy, the dude who was in Me, Myself, and Irene, whose name is Tony Cox, the little person. They team up. They're a team of guys who go and they pull off heists. They rob the place on Christmas, right? And Billy Bob's the Santa who's, and then he plays the elf. Tony Cox plays the elf, and it's great. It's great. The kid carves him a Christmas pickle, living with his partially dementia grandma while his dad is serving time for embezzlement or whatever it is. And it's also a Christmas movie that takes place in Arizona, which is a desert similar to the desert I grew up in, which has a very non-Christmas vibe. Bright, sunny days, great weather outside, no snow to be found. All of the houses kind of have that adobe finish to it. Yeah, so it's a movie that I love, hilarious. Again, on heavy rotation. The sequel isn't that bad either. But coming in at number 5, it's the only one I didn't get to rewatch, but I've watched it so many times. I didn't watch anything that could dethrone it, at least from the 5 position. So coming in at number 5 of my 5th favorite movie that was released on Thanksgiving weekend, Bad Santa. Moving to my 4th favorite movie released on Thanksgiving weekend. This is a movie that I grew up watching. This is a movie that, in rewatching it, kind of surprising. It has an aspect of it that doesn't really hold up in today's, cultural climate. If it was made today, I think the kids in this movie would have handled a specific situation completely differently. But despite all of that, it is an amazing movie that features a performance from an actor, a comedian that I wish was still with us, who, like so many, is no longer creating great movies. But this movie came out in 1993. Coming in at number 4 is Mrs. Doubtfire. Like, one of the classic Robin Williams performances. It's a character that allows him to do all kinds of different voices. The movie opens with him doing voices for a cartoon. The producers want him to smoke cigarettes, and he doesn't want to promote smoking to kids, so he walks off. He's like the most fun dad. The mom in this movie is a horrible person, right? She is definitely the bad guy in the situation, but even like during the divorce proceedings, not letting him spend any time with his kids, like having to jump through hoops to spend time with them, and just like definitely not. She's definitely a character written to be bad. She is somebody that is not like, she's hard to like. Definitely putting, which is not culturally generally what happens when there is a divorce, that the mother is the evil person, but she's definitely evil. And it also is a movie that you see Robin Williams' character learn to be more of an adult, because he is definitely a grown child, definitely the fun parent, but you see him learning to be a better parent. Somebody who learned his lessons, if he had learned them before, wouldn't have gotten himself into that situation of dealing with the divorce and all that. But yeah, Sally Field playing the evil mom in a lot of ways, and then also Pierce Brosnan, probably the first movie I saw Pierce Brosnan in as like her love interest outside of the marriage, after the divorce, as it were. But a movie that openly they have gay uncles, but in the scene where his son walks in on Mrs. Doubtfire taking a piss standing up, obviously she has a penis. I think the fact that he reacts in such a negative way goes to show more that how just culturally ignorant people were towards trans people. Whereas today, I think kids would be the most accepting, or it wouldn't affect kids in the same way unless they were coming from certain states raised by certain people. But I think definitely that reaction from his kids didn't age well in this movie, but makes sense for the time, just as a cultural ignorance. You didn't ever hear about transgender people at all, and like, for me, I just completely ignorant until the older you get, you learn more about the infinite ways you can exist in this world, the infinite variation and different types of people that exist, and all of the different beauty that exists within those variations. And aside from that reaction, which I don't think it holds up, because it was a specific moment of ignorance that culturally people just didn't know. And it's not like he was basically a cross-dresser, which again, politically today, some people are demonizing quite a bit, which is ridiculous. But I don't know. I love this movie. I loved watching it again. The scene at the restaurant where Robin Williams' character is going between the family and then this producer, this TV producer, where he's trying to get a show, and then he mixes it up. He's constantly changing in and out of the Mrs. Doubtfire costume. Like, hilarious scene. Like, so good. It's got so much heart. It has a good ending. Deals with divorce like so many family movies did in the 90s, right? Because it's finally cultural acceptable for married couples to get divorced, and it was happening a lot. Toxic situations generally happening in families like this. Like, this was not a toxic divorce situation. It was a situation where the dad was a lot of fun and the mom wasn't allowed to have fun. Like, she was anti-fun. I don't know. Coming in number 4, a classic, one that I love, that I grew up watching and still love despite that small moment of ignorance. Number 4, Mrs. Doubtfire. Let's take a little break from the show to promote. I figured out a way on my website to offer prints for every single painting. So if you go to a painting, you can buy the original painting or you can buy a print for everything. Artwork that you don't want to spend $100 plus on, 9 by 12 inch ink painting on paper, $100 for the original one-of-a-kind piece of artwork. Paintings range in price depending on their size. The 8 by 10 print, $20. Available in the store at inspireddisorder.com. And now let's get back to the show. Moving on to my third favorite movie released on Thanksgiving weekend. This is another classic movie. This is a movie that showed up on another one of my top 5 lists. This is The Flea. It showed up on my Flea top 5 movies featuring Flea, the bassist from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, who is also an actor in many movies. I would recommend checking out that top 5 list if you want a fun cross-section of movies to watch. But this movie was on that list. This movie was also on the list of movie cars that I chose, specifically this movie out of the franchise. So coming in at number 3, coming in on my top 5 list for, I believe, at least the third time, if not more. Number 3, my third favorite movie to be released on Thanksgiving weekend is Back to the Future 2. The Flying DeLorean showed up on my favorite cars top 5 list. Flea's performance as Marty McFly's boss in the video conferencing scene is one of my favorite Flea movies. And this movie is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's a movie that goes into the future. It's a movie that goes back into the past. It's a movie that layers on top of the previous movie, where you're actually seeing events from the first movie from a different perspective as he's going back. It sets up for the third movie, which I'm also a fan of, Back to the Future 3. But yeah, top to bottom, I love this movie so much. The view of the future was always fun with the hoverboards. And then even him going back in time, the Mr. Fusion that's part of the DeLorean, where he can just put garbage in it and it works. Love that as well. Where we're going, we don't need roads. Amazing line. Just such a fun movie. It's got all of the different aspects you would want from a time travel movie. It's got the alternate timeline, which I remember growing up how, like, it's such a bummer, this movie. This is a dark movie, right? He goes back, loses the almanac, and then the Trump-like character gets it, gets rich off of it, and then runs the country, right? Very, very, like, parallels to 2016. Great, right? The alternate timelines, like it's just great. I loved every aspect of this movie. So much fun. A great movie. By far my favorite Back to the Future movie as well. So, and it was the only one, I believe, that was released on Thanksgiving weekend. So, coming at number 3, Back to the Future 2. Moving on to my second favorite movie released on Thanksgiving weekend. This is a movie that came out while I was working at a movie theater during Thanksgiving. This is a movie that when it let out, I have never seen a movie theater as thoroughly destroyed and dirty as when this movie got released, and when people would walk out of this movie theater, me and one of the largest floor crews of cleaning people going into this movie theater to clean it before the next screening time. We would walk in and you could not see the floor. The floor just completely covered in packaging, in popcorn bags, in popcorn, in drink cups, in everything, right? 20 to 30 massive garbage bags full of trash piled up in preparation for the next screening of this movie. A movie that is the sequel to a movie that inspired me to get into animation until I realized what animation is like. That movie, coming in at number 2, is Toy Story 2. An insane movie. I mean, a great movie, obviously. The Toy Story movie, the first Toy Story movie, which is also a movie released on Thanksgiving weekend. Spoilers, did not make my list. Toy Story 2, however, did. When I saw Toy Story, wanted to be a computer animator, right? Loved it. First movie, completely rendered in computers. And then I took an animation class in high school, and it wasn't my thing. Toy Story 2 comes out. Great movie. Better effects, more characters, a similar kind of framework to the previous films. Where there's always this like character that's there's almost like this better life, like they're introduced to new lifestyles in every movie. And in this one, it is the collectible toy that he's introduced to. And there's always like an old, grizzled, jaded toy that's trying to convince them that it's a better lifestyle. And in this one, it's the old prospector. You get Woody finding out that he had a show. His toy is based on a show that was discontinued. He's got other toys that were part of the collection of toys. You have Newman from Seinfeld as Al, the toy collector from Al's Toy Barn. It's got a great actioning open sequence where it's Buzz Lightyear doing all these things to find out that it's just the other toys playing the video game of Buzz Lightyear. Just you get to see the toys in the wild when they're going across town to Toys Al Barn to break Woody out. You see the old man fixing the toys and then ending up fixing a lot of the toys in the store, like the squeaker one. Great stuff. Loved it. And it's also, I think it's the only one that has bloopers. Like the animated blooper reel at the end of Toy Story 2 is amazing. I mean, there was a time where movies just had blooper reels, right? I want to say that Jackie Chan is the one that inspired movies to add that, because a lot of Jackie Chan movies will have blooper reels because he does his own stunts. And a lot of the Pixar movies, I think the Bug's Life had blooper reels as well. This one had it. It's hilarious. I loved it. Another aspect. There's also some fun, like surreal horror stuff where Woody thinks he's getting thrown away. Loved it. Toy Story 2 might be my favorite Toy Story movie in the franchise. Next week, I'm going to be ranking all my Toy Story movies, all the 4 Toy Story movies, and then Lightyear, which is the movie specifically about the character Buzz Lightyear's toy was based on. So we'll see how that plays out next week. But Toy Story 2 coming in this list, my second favorite movie released on Thanksgiving weekend, Toy Story 2. Let's take a little break from the show to promote the benefits of Inspired Disorder Plus. So you go inspireddisorder.com/plus. Sign up, $5 a month. You get to binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free. You get to watch all of the live painting videos I do. You get a special members-only discount and deals for all of the artwork and merch that I sell. You also get the complete podcast back catalog of every podcast podcast I've ever produced. Hundreds of episodes, countless different podcasts. You also get access to my personal blog. A new blog comes out every week. In addition to that, you get my creative writing that I'm releasing. You also get access to asking me anything. 14 years of experience podcasting. I've been creating art my entire life. I've been using Photoshop since middle school, and you can contact me to ask me questions about that or anything else. So those are the benefits for signing up for Inspired Disorder Plus. And now let's get back to the show. Moving on to my first favorite movie, released on Thanksgiving weekend. This is a movie that has a sequel coming out this year that may or may not be on this list if I were to do it again later on. Have not seen the sequel, but the original is a movie that every time I've rewatched it is a movie that I absolutely love. This is also a movie that has shown up, I believe, at the top of my list of my Rian Johnson list, and that movie coming in at number 1 is Knives Out. It is a fun whodunit, great characters, a lot like a very accurate portrayal of spoiled, rich, conservative kids who act like they are self-made despite the fact that they were funded by their rich daddy, right? I love all those characters. I love that this movie has an ending where the good person, the honest person wins, right? That all of the spoiled, conservative, selfish, just cutthroat, horrible people that have never done anything on their own, I love that they lose. Every time I watch this movie, I see new details in how beautifully written this story is. This whodunit with twists and turns where you really don't know until the very end what the hole inside the hole of the donut is. When Blanc, what's his name? Mont Blanc, Daniel Craig's character, Benoit Blanc, something like that. When he figures everything out at the end and puts it all together, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. I love this movie. Has a lot of humor to it, a great mystery. You care about the characters. It's a great ride, such a fun ride. I love every time I put this movie on and watch it because I get to enjoy it again, and I get a little bit out of it every time I watch it. And Rian Johnson is one of my favorite directors, great writer-director. Brick is one of my favorite movies of his as well, which is a very similar type of a thing. Great writing, great mystery, and I'm super excited to see Glass Onion, which is the sequel to Knives Out, which is out right now, and I would love to go see it, but I'll probably wait. It's going to be hitting streaming, and I'll do a review of it when it does next month in December. But coming in number one, my favorite movie to be released on Thanksgiving weekend is Knives Out. Now, the discards, the movies that did not make my list. I mentioned Toy Story. Obviously, the first Toy Story didn't make it. Moana, a lot of fun. Watched it for the first time in preparation. Gorgeous animation. And a fun, hero's story, hero's journey. Love that. Coco, another gorgeous movie. Unbreakable, great M. Night Shyamalan. A little slow. When I watched it for the M. Night Shyamalan top 5, I was again reminded of how slow of a movie it is, but it is a great movie. Didn't make my list though. The Fountain, a great visual movie, beautiful. Excited to do a top 5 on that director in general, but wasn't a movie that I loved. These are movies I love to rewatch, and will go back to anytime, any place. Queen and Slim is another great one. The Mist, Stardust. Stardust doesn't get a lot of love. That's such a fun family movie. Reminds me a lot of Princess Bride, but more modern. Came out in 2008 or so. Loved it. Didn't make my list though. So, once again, this is my top 5 movies released on Thanksgiving weekend. Starting off with number 5 is Bad Santa. Number 4 is Mrs. Doubtfire. Number 3 is Back to the Future 2. Number 2 is Toy Story 2. And my number 1 favorite movie released on Thanksgiving weekend is Knives Out. Let me know how you would rank your favorite movies released on Thanksgiving weekend. If you want a list, I would recommend checking out Box Office Mojo. That is the list I went off of all the movies that made money on Thanksgiving weekend. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is another one that didn't make it. It just doesn't hold up. He's like an angry guy. Like, there's too much anger in a comedy. Not enough heart, right? Bad Santa, more fun. Enjoyed that more. But yeah, let me know in the comments. Hit me up on social media. Tell me your top 5 favorite movies released on Thanksgiving weekend. And I hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving, as this episode is coming out after Thanksgiving. And hope you have and enjoy whatever movie you go see this weekend, as the weekend is left on this Sunday.
New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere our podcasts are found. Binge the full week over at inspireddisorder.com/plus. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!
Today is the day where you wake up and you realize that everything that you've been dreaming about, everything that you've been wanting, every goal and wish and hope that you've ever had can become real. Dreams can come true. What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.